Welcome to Rinkside Rundown, the podcast that puts you right in the heart of women's hockey. I'm your host, Chris Sinclair, and each week I'm on a mission to showcase the incredible women who are lighting up the ice across the globe. Get ready as I chat with rising stars, seasoned pros, and all the game changers making waves in the world of women's hockey that you won't find anywhere else. So, let's dive into the exciting world of women's hockey and make sure to click that subscribe button so you never miss an exciting episode. Hello and welcome back to Rinkside Rundown, your go-to podcast for everything women's hockey. I'm your host, Chris Sinclair, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by Lucy Morgan, a University of Minnesota graduate and newest member of the Ottawa Charge. Lucy, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to be able to join the show and tell your story. I'm really excited to learn more about you, and I know that there are a lot of Charge fans who are feeling the same way since you recently signed with the team. So without further ado, let's dive in, and we start where it started for you. So let's go right back to the beginning. You grew up in North Dakota, and I wanted to know what first drew you to the sport of hockey.
Well, I was at that age where I think I was like 4 years old and I kind of just follow your older sibling. So that happened to be my brother. My brother's friend got into hockey because his dad's brother got into hockey. So it's kind of just one of those things where I happened just to start playing and then I just got addicted and couldn't stop.
Do you remember those feelings at the beginning when you first started playing? Was it always something where you were like, I love this, like from the first moment you took that first stride on
Mhm.
the ice? Or was it something that you ultimately kind of grew into and fell in love with?
I would say it probably be more towards um the moment I first stepped on the ice. I love it because I did play other sports all the way up until I think eighth grade. And during when I played other sports, I'm like, oh, I can't be doing this. I have hockey practice later. Like I would always just look forward to hockey, so I knew right from the beginning it was my main passion.
Oh, I love that.
Hmm.
And speaking of main passions, obviously, as I mentioned off the top, and for everyone out there who already knows, you are a goaltender. So,
Hmm.
um, why goaltending? Was it always goaltending, or was it kind of you were just put in that position and you just kind of ended up loving it?
So actually, I wasn't a full-time goalie till about 12, which is a little bit later transition. I think it was 12 or 13 around there. Um, so what drew me to that position was I was just so competitive that I hated as a player you would have to get off the ice. Like I just wanted to play the whole game. And then I hated losing. So if I was like, oh, if I play the whole game, then I can make the game closer. Like my 5-year-old self is like, I want to play the whole game because I want to stop the puck and make it a close game type of thing. And then after that, I just fell in love with the position because I was able to practice with guys in the off season, and by nature they were just a step above the girls. So um, that was kind of my pathway, I guess. But I loved playing with the guys in the summer, and the only way to play with the guys is to be a goalie. So that's kind of how it just ended up being.
When as you mentioned, you started in that position a little bit later. So when
Hmm.
you first started, what was the position that you played most consistently? And equally as important, I want to know, are there ever those moments when you say to yourself, I want to play forward, or I would rather just take a couple of shifts in defense? Are there ever those moments for you as well?
No, I love goaltending. Obviously there's like sometimes where you're like, oh, this practice or this drill is not very goalie friendly, but that I still don't have any I still don't really envy the other positions the same way.
Growing up as well, Were there role models or were there influences for you, whether that's in your personal life or maybe athletically? Even as you mentioned, you played a number of different sports as well early on.
Mhm.
Were there ever those role models or influences for you as well?
So, being from where I'm from, I'm actually like the only, I think, collegiate athlete or for hockey for Division One, for men and women. Um, and only other ones to come from North Dakota. There's just only like a handful, so I wouldn't say I had huge role models. I think um, you could say the Lamoureux twins were kind of a role model, but um, the biggest role model I think was just watching the NHL goalies. One goalie in particular, Jonathan Quick, was my role model because I was able to watch him every night, and then I grew to love him.
So, and I guess kind of now conversely on that,
Hmm.
because with the PWHL, as you mentioned, you didn't have, I mean, part of it again was being from North Dakota, but
Yeah.
ultimately, more broadly, you didn't have those same females in the sport to be able to look up to and to be
Hmm.
inspired by necessarily. What does it feel like knowing now that you are part of that change where now there are going to be a lot of young girls who look to you and say, you know what, I can't wait to be just like Lucy Morgan. How does that feel to you?
I haven't really comprehended it, to be honest with you, because at the beginning of my PW career, I'm like, oh, it's just another year of hockey. But then I get like messages here and there of like, oh, can my daughter like do private lessons with you? And they might live like 2 hours away and stuff like that. Or it's just like, oh, can you sign this, stuff like that that you don't really get when you're in college, but you get as a pro. So that's probably the biggest difference I've noticed. um, but it is cool for a platform like this to exist now, because I do think it will just help the game to grow, and especially in rural areas where um, there wasn't really a path set out. But now it's pretty clear on like what to do to get to that level now, which is awesome. Because growing up with no role models in the area, it is hard because you have to carve your own path. But now the path is kind of carved for a lot of young girls.
I'm so glad that you highlighted that because
Mhm.
that was going to be something that I wanted to talk about as well is,
Yeah.
more specifically, I mean, we could maybe say grassroots, but certainly more
Mhm.
specifically in those rural areas, how important the PWHL is going to be to motivating and inspiring, and hopefully also getting that funding and those, providing those opportunities for those young girls who are saying to themselves, again, I want to be like Lucy Morgan, but I just don't know how.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
this having a platform like this can really help that.
Yeah,
Is that kind of what you're
exactly.
thinking too?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's gonna be. I can't wait to watch women's hockey in like 20 years because I think the game is just gonna elevate even more.
Oh, yeah, that's the dream, and I feel the same way. And
Mhm.
and um, not to get too much into current and future you, but that must be
Mhm.
really inspiring for you as well when you think about your own path and what then, being a part of this. This is the second season of the PWHL. And you're really still in on the ground floor at this point, really defining
Mhm.
what this space looks like. It must be really motivating and inspiring for you personally to know that you're a part of this and to know that you're laying the
Mhm.
foundation for many, many generations to come.
Yeah, yeah. I think the biggest thing I'm proud of is I hope just young girls in North Dakota can be like, oh, Lucy Morgan and Britta Crow made it to the P-Dub. Like, I can make it to the P-Dub.
And when we think back, still talking now kind of going back to your junior career, I really want to highlight something that when I found this out, it was something that really stuck with me because you were a part of a very, very stunning upset. you made 49 of 50 saves in
Oh,
yeah in a huge upset in the North Dakota State tournament. And want to take a moment just to kind of go back to that and just like what were your biggest takeaways from that tournament on the ice, but how do you think being a part of such an experience really helped you to grow and you to form and to grow that confidence in
mhm.
you and your abilities as a goaltender?
Yeah, let me give some context to that first too. So in North Dakota, you kind of have semi-populated areas. Again, there's no major city in North Dakota, so it's basically all a small town, but you kind of have semi-populated areas in small town. And Mandan is technically a bigger town because it's next to Bismarck, but at the end of the day, we only have one school system, um, and like around 30,000 people that live in Mandan. Whereas in the bigger towns, it's around 100,000 to 300,000 for North Dakota, somewhere around there. So just going into like how Mandan shaped me to where I am today is like you had to fight to beat the bigger schools, you could say. Um, and that kind of shaped me as who I am today. And yeah, that game kind of is just the cherry on top of how much work it took up to get to that. Um, it probably is one of the biggest upsets in North Dakota history, given the fact of how populated Fargo is compared to Mandan and the resources that they have, and vice versa. But yeah, I definitely still remember that feeling and how excited I was after the game. Yeah, that was a fun one.
Well, yeah, and the whole time you were telling that story, you had a giant smile on your face. So it's
Oh,
obvious that
I
you're
did?
still, yeah,
I'll lose
exactly.
this interview.
You were really good in that game. Again, stopping 49 of 50. That
Yeah.
must have done a lot for your confidence.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think it did.
Oh, wow. Oh, so you saying that your confidence was already really high and that just kind of
I think one thing about me is like sometimes I do like lack confidence, but that's everyone, right? But I don't listen to it. Like I don't really care if my confidence is high or low. I just stop the puck. You know, the puck doesn't care if you have a good amount of confidence or not. So,
it's a good
um,
it's not a bad mentality to have as a goaltender.
yeah,
Just stop the puck. That's what you're there for.
yeah.
Yeah, don't make
But
it any more
I
complicated.
guess to your point, I think to others, after that game, like people were like, "Oh, she's a D1 goalie," because you know in high school when you're growing up, you kind of everyone knows who the stars on the team are that you play against, and everyone has their theories. Oh, is this person going to play Division 1? And I think after that, everyone was like, "This person should go to Division 1."
Why don't we hop into what was an incredible career? You started with St. Lawrence, and then
Mhm.
you ultimately played your final season with the University of Minnesota. Um, After 4 years with St. Lawrence before transferring, um, let's talk about that experience with St. Lawrence. I just kind of what was that?
Mhm.
What was the what did it feel like to make that jump into the NCAA? And why ultimately do you remember you chose like what was it about St. Lawrence that you were like this is the right place for me to start my
Mhm.
collegiate career?
So, just to set the facts right, St. Lawrence chose me. I didn't choose St.
Okay.
Lawrence. Yeah, so I was a walk on. Um, I didn't really have any offers. I think it is just due to the fact that I grew up in North Dakota and they were committing seventh, eighth, ninth graders at the time. And during that time, I was in North Dakota, and not a lot of scouts go there. So I kind of was like wanting, like I knew I wanted to go D1. Like I didn't want to go D3 at all. I was like D1 or nothing type of thing. And I still remember that feeling of like just a pit, like I can't believe no one wants me. Like, I think I'm just as good as these other D1 commits. Like, why does no one want me? And then um, I was able just to get a walk-on opportunity from St. Lawrence. He just like randomly checked his email one day and he emailed me back, and the rest is history. But yeah, he got me like a month before I graduated, so I knew I was going in like April or something. But when I got there, uh some people knew I was coming in, but some people like was a total surprise. Like some of my former teammates had no idea. So yeah, that was definitely an experience. And um I grew to love St. Lawrence, and I considered St. Lawrence still like my home. Like I go back there and I feel right at home. Yeah, I have a lot of good memories from the St. Lawrence. I always talk highly of it. It's one of my favorite places on earth.
I think this goes back to that confidence piece of
Yeah.
about you, that you know, despite the fact that you may have been feeling down or you may have been worried about not necessarily being able to fulfill that dream of yours to go to D1, you still went in there and you made the most out of it. And the
Mm-hmm.
most out of it, oh my goodness, did you make after 4 years there?
Mm-hmm.
What were some of during that time? What were some of those takeaways from you? You know, you mentioned how important um, that university was.
Uh-huh.
What were some of those takeaways for you?
Coming in as a freshman, I just expected nothing. I was essentially there to practice. Um, but Wellesley, one thing about Wellesley is like he's kind of unconventional, and he just randomly threw me in a game, and that was against Ohio, and I still remember my debut. Like I think I had over 40 shots, and we were winning 2-1 with like 2 minutes left in the third or a minute left, and they pulled their goalie, like they're trying to score it, and then they eventually scored, and then they unfortunately scored again right after that. Like they won the face off, and it was like all of a sudden a 2-on-1 backdoor in the net. And I just remember feeling so devastated. I was like, oh, he's never gonna play me again. But then when I look back, it's just like, of course he's gonna play you again. You made like over 40 saves and you almost upset Ohio. So yeah, that was kind of cool. It's just like um, just coming in from nothing and just building up. Definitely gives me confidence within myself of like just in general in life of like if I ever get down or for instance if I ever have to move across the country within 2 days, I know like I'll be fine. Like it's I'll figure something out. But yeah, and then just the biggest takeaways from St. Lawrence is like what um, that program instilled with me. I think what makes St. Lawrence special is that it's not just hockey, it's not just education, it's everything. It's who you are as a person. And that's one thing that the coaches stress to us is like, this is a developing stage of your life. And we want to form you as good people. And I think I just became like such a great person after St. Lawrence and more resilient, hardworking, and even more competitive than I ever was, which is crazy because, as you probably can tell, I came from a fighter, competing background. So for them to even highlight that and make it more is an incredible job that coaching staff did.
So then let's talk about, obviously those 4 years were transformative for you
Mm-hmm.
to a pretty big degree, and that's fantastic, and that's a part of what the collegiate life and your collegiate career is supposed to do. Is supposed to,
Mm-hmm.
not just on the ice, it's supposed to transform you off the ice as well.
Yep,
Um,
exactly.
how did the single season with Minnesota help to continue transforming you into the goalie you are?
I think it kind of just put the cherry on top of my college career. Kind of finalized it. I get those practices are so competitive. Everyone's just so good. And then also having to compete for the starting spot again. That was something that I think a lot of people, their last college career, would hate to do. But as you probably know, I was like, yeah, I'm ready. Like, I love competing. And that's one thing that I learned from Minnesota is just to brush the dust off on how to compete for something when it comes to your individual spot. So that was kind of fun. Um, Other things I learned at Minnesota were um, being not being the underdog. So that was something completely new for me, and how to manage a game as a goaltender like that, because there is times where, like, for instance, Gophers are ranked above Mankato, but Mankato can show up and just dominate a period. And if you let goals in, it's going to look really bad on you. So you need to learn how to manage that type of thing, um, and manage how, let's say, vice versa. You only get one shot every 5 minutes. How do you manage that? How do you stay sharp? So I think it just um, filled in like some of the holes I had in my game and just made me an all-around great goalie.
As we continue looking at your career, we have to look at your current, where you are now. Um, and, before we talk about and dive into your experiences thus far, starting off with the Minnesota Frost, now with the Ottawa Charge, as I had mentioned off the top. What were your initial thoughts of the PWHL, and now that you're a part of it, what are your thoughts now as well?
Yeah, my initial thoughts were, oh, like, I don't think I'm good enough to play in this league. So I was kind of looking towards SDHL, but then something came through, and then I just ended up at Minnesota. Basically, that's how it happened. So those were my initial thoughts, but now that I'm in it, um, like I said at the beginning, I still can't comprehend the impact it will have, but I it's definitely such a big impact on the community and what it does for especially like youth hockey. So that's my biggest initial impression.
Yeah, and especially as we talked about earlier, when we talk about youth hockey, the impact that the PWHL is going to have specifically back home for, as one
Mhm.
example, back home for you, right? In a place that may not have had this sort of focus. Now there might just be that opportunity for those, like we've said, those girls to be able to play the sport that you love as much as you do, and they love just as much as you do.
Yeah.
Um, let's talk about the Frost. We have to start. We have to start there. We have to
Okay.
start there.
Yeah.
You signed as a reserve with the Frost, and you even had a chance to get into some game
Yeah.
action. Obviously, it didn't happen necessarily the way that you would have wanted to. Obviously, you would have wanted to start that game rather than
Mhm.
with the last minute injury.
Mhm.
Um, but I want to know first of all, just especially for yourself, as you said, when you first saw the PWHL, you were like, I'm not going to be able to play in that league.
Mhm.
But then you're there. You join the organization. You are around some of the most influential and some of the biggest names in the sport of women's hockey. What was that like for you? And what were your initial impressions of the Minnesota Frost?
Yeah. My initial impression of the Frost was definitely a great impression. I was kind of shell shocked about how deep the roster was, because I was used to, in college, when you practice, for instance, power play, and you're like, okay, this is unit one. Like, you kind of load up one unit. Most teams do. And then unit two is kind of a level below. And then when we practice power play, I was like, okay, this is unit one. And then we put on unit two, and I'm like, wait, I don't even know what unit one it is. And if you think about it, if the NHL only had 6 teams, think about the power play units. Like, you couldn't decipher which one is unit one and two. So that was probably my first eye-opening experience. Um, and my second is just the speed of the game, but also the strength of everyone has increased. Everyone has good shots. I obviously that's like that in D1 as well, but now people have perfected it. People have perfected, there's different things when it comes to a good shot. For instance, fast release, accuracy, and speed. And usually in Division One, players have one or two of those three aspects. Whereas in the PW, majority, if not all, skaters have all three of those aspects. So I was definitely getting scored on a little bit more than I would like at the beginning. Just trying to adjust to that.
You actually had the opportunity to get into a game.
Mm-hmm.
Just again, when you think about the fact that you started off saying you weren't going to be able to play in this league, and now you're not just practicing, but you're actually in a game.
Mm-hmm.
What was that feeling like for you to be in an actual PWHL game? This is a professional women's game, the highest level, and you've made it.
To be honest, I wasn't even nervous in that game because I couldn't comprehend that I was actually playing. I was just like thrown in, so you're just like kind of there. But yeah, when I think about that game, I just it's just frustrating because you let in 5 goals. So I just hope that doesn't define me, and mentally I've moved on, but now I just have to, like, moving forward, if there's expansion or whatnot, like I just hope that doesn't ruin my stock value. That's probably the biggest thought when it comes to that game.
Yeah, that's fair. And I would say if in thinking about not ruining your stock, clearly that didn't happen because Ottawa ended up reaching out to you, and now you have an opportunity with this club. Before we get into Ottawa, the city, Ottawa, the team, just
Mhm.
maybe talk a little bit about how that opportunity presented itself and what your at least initial impressions were with the idea of moving from Minnesota now to Canada.
Yeah, so I'll tell you how it all came about. So I was about to hop on the ice. It was the reserve skate, so there was only two other people in the locker room. My agent called me, and normally he texts me before he calls me. So I was like, "Oh, this is weird." So I answer it, and I was like 5 minutes before I go on the ice. So I was just like, "Oh, it'll be quick." I answer it. He doesn't even say hi. He goes, "Ottawa wants you," and I go, "I can't deal with this right now. I gotta go. Bye." And then I ended up calling him like 3 hours later or 2 hours later. I don't even know. And then we talk it through, and he's like, "This is a no brainer. Like, you've got to take this." I'm like, "You're right, I do." So that's how it kind of came about. My initial impression was kind of shock. I kept saying to myself, like, as I was packing up my gear, like, this is crazy. Um, yeah. So, for instance, I walked in the rink like normal day, and then I had to leave the rink with everything. So that's just, if you think about that for your 9 to 5, imagine you go to work, and then at 5, you just have to pack up everything and leave abruptly. That's kind of what it's like.
Well, and not even just pack up your stuff and go home. It's pack
Yeah.
up your stuff knowing that you're now moving not just to a different house in the neighborhood, or not just a different
Mhm.
city and in the state. You're moving to a different country as well. And so, what was that? What was kind of going through your mind at that point, or was it maybe just kind of, let's be honest, probably a bit of a whirlwind, going like, oh, I started off the day going onto the ice thinking I was gonna just have another
Yeah.
day at the office, so to speak, and now here I am, moving to a different country into Ottawa.
Yeah. So, like I said, initial impression was like shock. And then for like, the first hour it was excitement because it's an opportunity. And in this league as a goalie, you don't get like any opportunity if you're not the top six. So that was exciting. And then after that first hour, it was just like pure stress. I was like, oh, I have to pack up this. I have to say goodbye to my friends. Yeah, randomly moving across the country is not that much fun. um, it's definitely a lot of stress. But yeah, I finally just got a place yesterday. Haven't unpacked my stuff yet, but hopefully I'll be all settled in after our next road trip, or
Yeah.
at the end of our road trip.
Yeah,
But
of
yeah.
course. Well, congratulations on finally getting settled in the nation's capital.
Hmm.
Um, Speaking of which, now I might be a little bit biased in this because I both live in the nation's capital and I was born just outside of the nation's capital. So I've been here my entire life. So I might be a little bit biased here, but Ottawa certainly has a passionate fan base,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to hockey. And I think for a lot of people outside of Ottawa, they were surprised to see just how passionate the Ottawa fan base is when it comes to more specifically women's hockey.
Hmm.
Um, the Charge have really embraced the city. The city has really embraced them. I want to know from you, now that you're finally quote unquote settled, at least you have a place.
Hmm.
What are you most excited about when it comes to joining the Charge and being a part of the city of Ottawa?
Yeah, the fan base seems really passionate. I was surprised the other game that I got kind of recognized as I was walking to the rink. They're like, "Oh, are you Lucy? Oh, welcome to the team!" Like as if they knew me. I was like, "Oh," I was like, "Okay, how do you know me?" I haven't even stepped on the ice yet, you know. So that's one cool thing. And one time I was shopping, um, and I was wearing a team issued thing, but it wasn't like a huge logo like this. It was just very subtle. And he's like, "Oh, do you play for the Charge?" And, like, so it's definitely cool how people embrace female athletes and how up to date they are. Because I am a new player, and it feels like everyone already knows me.
That must feel really good to help you feel comfortable in a new place. Is that fair to say that that sort of, community and the passionate fan base that we've kind of talked about?
Yeah, it definitely helps to make you feel welcome to the city, and to make you feel like you belong here. Uh, but I'm still getting settled, so I haven't like totally figured out Ottawa, so I can't say for sure, but I think it definitely helps.
Good, good, good. I'm glad. You've had the opportunity now to be around your new teammates. What are your first impressions of the club, of the team, the atmosphere in that, there are some pretty big names, especially in Canadian women's hockey in that room. Some players who like Brianne Jenner, Emily Clark, Ashton Bell, like these have been players who are big parts of the Canadian national program. Um, just what are your impressions of the locker room so far?
Yeah, the first impressions are just overall like great people. The main difference between Minnesota and here is that a lot of the Minnesota players happen to be from there or have some type of tie, so they're kind of already settled in the city, whereas everyone here is usually not from here. So I feel like there's that one thing in common that everyone has, and that kind of just binds the team together even a little bit closer, I would say. Um, and it seems like people are hanging out after the rink, doing stuff together. So it's kind of, I guess, more similar to college, but in a good way, because of like everyone's kind of friends with each other. Whereas you don't see that a lot in professional sports, just because, there's age gaps, people have children. It's similar to a 9 to 5 where you go to work with your coworkers and then you go home. You don't really hang out with your coworkers, but here you actually hang out together, so that's cool.
You know what? I hadn't even thought about that perspective and the fact
Mhm.
that, like you said, like outside of Rebecca Leslie, who's from Ottawa, everyone else is from outside of Ottawa, the closest
Mhm.
being, the GTA. And then obviously, as far as Czechia, as far as Sweden, all
Mhm.
these different places as well. So that it's great that you highlighted that, and that being something that actually can really help the newest members, especially players who don't have the preseason, don't have the off season to start
Mhm.
feeling comfortable. It's like you're getting onto a moving train,
Yeah.
so it's nice to have that those people there to be able to help you feel comfortable.
Yeah, for sure.
For young goalies looking to potentially one day play in the PWHL,
Hmm.
what advice might you give them?
Know your worth.
Ooh, expand
Yeah.
on that. Tell me more. I want to know more. I love
So,
that.
I
I love
mean,
that.
there's so many outliers when it comes to determining goalie's performance and all that. It's very similar to a quarterback position where you have all these first round quarterback picks, but a lot of them don't turn out. And but then you have someone like Brock Purdy just turn out. You know, it's just that element of unknown um, that it will either hurt your game or help your game. So if you believe in yourself, it will help your game. But if you like rely on hype and rely on name recognition, and then you don't keep up with that status, you can like when growing up, I've seen goalies just stop improving because they're like, "Oh, I'm good enough," you know. So stuff like that. And it's very hard to know your worth when you're focused on other people's opinions. So just staying involved with the process and not only staying involved with the process but loving goaltending. Like every day, like don't dread goaltending, love it because that's gonna be your anchor.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And what's great about that advice is a lot of it just applies to life. So
Mm-hmm.
I love that it's transferable advice for those of us who are not athletically inclined, like myself. So that still works out well for me. So I appreciate that, and that's a perfect spot for us to uh, end that part and dive into the rapid fire question.
Okay.
Um, Now, I always provide the caveat. It's only rapid fire for me in that I'm going to try to limit the number of follow-up questions I ask. You can
Okay.
take the time you want to answer, and if you have a great story to tell, I want to hear it. Don't feel like you have to be rapid fire yourself. It's just on me.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Let's start off with a hard-hitting question. What is your go-to pregame meal?
Well, I don't have a go-to pregame meal, but something with carbs. Usually, I tend to stay away from pasta, so maybe chicken and rice with some type of hot sauce, probably.
Ooh, sounds good.
Yeah.
Um, Opposite of game day, you're just going to be relaxing. You don't have to worry about practice. What is your favorite cheat meal or snack treat for yourself?
Oh, probably a skillet cookie. It's my favorite dessert.
I've never had one, but they look delightful. Do you have any superstitions or pregame rituals as a goalie? I feel like this is kind of part and parcel with being a goalie.
Yeah, so I'm actually different from a lot of people. I don't have any superstitions.
Okay.
I kind of just take a nap and then after I wake up, obviously the game is on your mind, so you just think about whenever I think about the game, I think about the game in a positive way and myself succeeding in that game.
What is your go-to pump up song?
I don't have a go-to pump up song, but I like to listen to probably rap or rock, something with a good beat.
Okay, that's fair. What do you hope to bring to Ottawa's goaltending group?
I hope to make a great impression on the coaching staff, and also be a great teammate to Gwyneth and Logan.
Nice. Okay, that's fair.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that. How would you, for someone who hasn't had the opportunity to see you play, whether that was a collegiately or during your time with the Frost, how would you describe your style of play as a goaltender?
I would describe myself as I try to make the big saves look easy by being in position and reading the play.
Okay, nice. I love that. Nice and succinct.
Mhm.
I appreciate that. What's one thing that people don't know about the one and only Lucy Morgan?
I guess one thing that people don't know is I'm addicted to hot sauce.
Explains your go-to pregame meal. Do you
Yeah.
have, is there a brand specifically that you're like, because listen, I'm
Mhm.
new to the world of hot sauce, and I am definitely on the weak side of the hot sauce enjoyment scale, but I'm trying to get better. So please, suggestions.
I don't. It depends on the type of meal. Right. If it's like Mexican, I tend to do more of like a hot Mexican salsa. But on average, I use Frank's. Do you know what that is?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there, because I know that there it's like buffalo. There's the, I usually use
Yeah.
the original. Is there one of those that you?
Uh, I like the original, and then if I use buffalo, I do a different brand. I forget what it's called, but it's like orange.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
that you love hot sauce so much that you actually, it isn't just you buy hot sauce, it's that it has to be the right hot sauce for the right meal. I love that.
Yeah.
That tells me the dedication and that the love of hot sauce is
Yeah.
legit. Um, what is one word that your teammates would use to describe you?
Right now, probably shy. I like I'm only a weekend, so probably shy. Even though I'm not that shy, I just like haven't like got to know everyone yet, so it's hard to like jump into the conversation.
Okay, so how
Um,
about like when you look back on your collegiate career, or you look back at your time with Minnesota, especially because you went from the University of Minnesota to the Minnesota Frost, so at least you weren't,
okay.
going so
Yeah.
far away, so it would be in theory at least a little bit more comfortable. What other words would your teammates have used to describe you?
Yeah, some of my old teammates would probably describe me as silly, and one of a kind. Definitely a little bit different. That just goes with being a goalie though.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a very
And
goalie answer.
also probably social, I would say.
Okay, awesome. Those are good attributes to bring to the Ottawa Charge. So we're excited to
Mhm.
see how that pans out for you as well. What's something that remains on your bucket list?
Okay, one thing I was talking to my roommate like 2 weeks ago before I moved was skydiving. Like me and Murph were like, oh, this would be so cool. So I guess skydiving.
Okay, good
Yeah.
news. Just across into Gatineau, you can go skydiving. Now, I wouldn't suggest doing that now because it would be awfully cold, but you're
Yeah.
not far away from that, so you could cross
Yeah.
that off your list while you're here in Ottawa.
Mhm.
I want to know, lastly, this is the last hard-hitting, rapid-fire question for you before we wrap up today. What's a lesson that you've learned through your hockey journey that you wish more young players knew?
Probably networking matters. Um, just like going back into like thinking about what I struggled with, um, was just like trying to get into doors. And that door is so much easier if you know the person controlling the door, or know of a dad that knows a guy type of thing.
That's wow. That's
Yeah.
a really, again, what I love about this advice, and this is the
Yeah.
second time you've done it, is that it isn't just about like this, that just applies to life. Okay. So with that being said, the time has come to say goodbye. But I want to say how much I appreciate your time, Lucy Morgan.
Mm.
You've, the coming over from Minnesota to Ottawa, getting settled, as you mentioned, just getting your place, not even being unpacked, but yet you still prioritized this conversation. It's been a joy getting to know you. I'm going to see you around the rink, and I can't wait for that. But thank you so much for taking the time to join the show today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Of course, and if you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your fellow hockey fans. It really helps us grow and bring more incredible stories from around the world of women's hockey. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time on Rinkside Rundown. Cheers.